smart systems, technology programs. All provide high flex modalities for most of their courses. It's been very convenient for students. At this time, the architectural technology courses are all in person. Engineering, science, and networking and cybersecurity both have online options as well for students in the online department. And those have been very, very popular in the last couple of years and really have allowed those programs to grow. So it's been excellent. Student services here, we have an academic support center. Usually have a couple students, student tutors. We have a professional tutor typically. Students can just walk in and get help. If they want to set an appointment, they can do that. If they actually want to go online, our tutors are also available to help students online. So I help out all the students here at the center. There's a one-stop specialist here every Wednesday that's available to help our students with paperwork, financial aid, billing questions, that type of thing. So every Wednesday we have a person here the entire day, which is great. And advising, we have our faculty advisors run the programs, and I'm also an advisor as well. So got that. Enrollment for the past year. In the fall, 2023, the enrollment was a little disappointing. That count was 101, down 12.9% from previous fall. Spring, we actually turned it around. That count was up to 80. It was up 9.6% from previous spring. So far, the enrollment for fall 2024 is actually looking really good. Headcount is up 14.3%. From the same time last year. I know Dr. Bates is going to say it's early. A lot of time to go, so things can change, but I actually feel pretty good. I just actually registered a couple hours ago, a couple students for the center, so every week we're seeing students sign up for courses. Some activities and highlights from the year. We have had on-campus appointments available for prospective students and their families, every Thursday and Friday, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And students have taken advantage of that. They usually get a tour of the campus, get to meet with our instructors, find out more about what we're doing over here. It's kind of over the summer's a little different. We're going to be doing Wednesdays and Fridays, but appointments still available. The fall and spring, we have visit days scheduled, one day in the fall, one day in the spring. That's basically like an open house for prospective students. This fall, we invited the PTAC freshman class to come visit our campus. The students actually began in Newark, got an orientation dev course in Newark, then trailed to Victor and found out more about our smart systems technologies program and networking and cybersecurity. Spring, we actually hosted a similar visit with our PTAC juniors. They're actually a large class, 21 students. 20 showed up for the visit. So they're going to be the seniors next year, and they'll actually be taking our courses. So great class, by the way. So we're looking forward to seeing them here this coming year. Urban League of Rochester came here for a visit in the fall and the spring, 2 separate visits. They also found out more about our programs here. Got to speak with our instructors. Workforce and Career Solutions was also here, and they got to meet them, find out about their programs, and actually got a demonstration of the virtual reality and augmented reality technology that they're using. So that was well received. We had a big career job expo here a couple months ago. Students from FLCC, students from our area schools, and area school districts came. Local job seekers were welcome. Students and job seekers were able to come and discuss opportunities with, we had actually 14 companies come. So that was really good. We also had a panel discussion So that was well. We had over 80 attendance, so one of our benefits. Keep improving it every year. There's a couple of things we can do to make it a little better. We hosted 2 community education courses in planning for a successful retirement. Those were well received. And next year we're planning to have that as well. 3D printing course and a new course in computer basics. So we'll try to promote that a little more than we did last year. We were actually at Grid Site last year and this year. The Workforce and Career Solutions Department is using our center as a grid site. Grid is growing rural infrastructure together. Folks are familiar with that program. Victor Campus provided lab sessions for foundations in advanced manufacturing. And students were training on virtual reality equipment, so that was pretty interesting. See, other items throughout the year, we do advising for returning and new students, do registrations, phone calls to rematriculated students. That happens through the winter, spring, and summer. Kudos to our engineering students. They won their 3rd mini UAV competition this year. It was held at FCC. So students worked on that several months in the spring and prepared for big competition. So we're happy that they won the last 3 years. It's excellent. And Dr. Sam Samantha, of course, had his famous co-op Ventures 13. He had like 10 students talk about their co-op experiences with some of our local technology companies. I believe there were over 40 attendees for that, so that seems to go well every year. Some upcoming events. We have our STEAM camp still scheduled for the summer. Victor's STEAM camp, the theme this year is STEAM in Motion. That's July 8th to 12th. We still have some registration available. Registrations have been a little scarce across all the centers, to be honest with you, and even at Mueller Field Station. So there's a little time left, and hopefully that we can get some people. We have a meeting that we're really excited about coming up in a few weeks. Victor and Bluefield school districts will be meeting with us and several of the cabinet members. They're interested in providing some sort of instruction here. Not entirely sure what at this point, but looks like they want to use the Early College Scholars Program, provide some education for their students. They also talked about, in a previous meeting a couple of months ago, about having to drive a long way to get students to BOCES courses. So, you know, maybe some of that has to do with that. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. That should be interesting. And I guess that's it. Any questions for me?
Just to clarify, my apologies, Misty Hall is going to be our new student trustee, not affiliated with the Victor campus. So just wanted to clarify that. My apologies. Any questions for Don?
I do, yes. You mentioned community ed and also Bluefield with Victor. I'm wondering if the community education programs that they put on, where sometimes faces a challenge on their campuses, have been an opportunity for us to maybe do some partnership where community ed we know is typically after hours, but wonder if there's an opportunity for us to utilize this for those 2 school districts in that capacity.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't. Got plenty of space here.
Have we approached them in the past?
For community ed, I don't believe so, but it's a good idea. Make note of that.
And also there's an advisory board, but an advisory group that used to be associated with this particular campus. Are they still in existence? And if so, do they meet on any kind of frequency?
The Victor Advisory Board?
Right.
Yeah, twice a year.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fall, the last couple of years, the fall, it's been just for Victor. And in the spring, we've done joint meetings with the other campus.
And how do we utilize that?
Take ideas. I mean, actually, our big career expo came right out of, advisory board meeting. We had a big meeting about what we could do to, start promoting the college to younger students. And that came up. We talked for a while about that and, put that together. And that's been one of the more successful things we've done here. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? We're done. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Misty, welcome. If you have any questions, just let us know. All right, review the May 1st, 2024 minutes. Any questions, comments, or edits to the minutes? All right, enrollment report update. Dr. Carol Orbeus.
Good afternoon, everybody. So your packet has the enrollment update from Friday, May 24th, and I'm going to provide a verbal update of the most recent Friday, which is this past Friday, May 31st. So summer enrollment headcount is up 12.5% and FTE is up 17.3%. So all good news there. For fall 24, headcount enrollment is up 3.5% and FTE is up 0.4%. We're starting to get into the peak period for new student registrations between late June and early August. So at our August meeting, I will have hopefully even more positive news for you regarding fall enrollment. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, next we have Ryan and Brooke regarding the supporting online student success.
Hello, everyone. Ryan McCabe, Associate Vice President of Academic Technology and High Impact Practices, and this is.
Brooke Napoleon, Professional Academic Advisor of Online Learning.
We're going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the different ways that we attempt to help students be more successful in their online courses. I'm going to talk more about the programmatic side and how we work on adjusting courses to make them better for students. And Brooke's really going to talk about the work that she does individually with students. This is the online learning team. Mary Elizabeth covers a lot of the technology that wraps around the online program. Jeff does some of the administrative work in the online program, and then also assists with faculty with instructional design. I am, I guess, the de facto director of online learning. Brooke is going to tell you about what she does in a little bit. And Alexis is an instructional designer, primarily just works with faculty on the development of courses, the refining of those courses, and making sure that they are up to date with the latest accessibility and pedagogical standards. So just quickly, Carol talked about enrollment a little bit. So currently we have 24 online programs or certificates, which for comparison, I'm going down to Corning in a few weeks to do their institutional readiness process for SUNY, and I think they said they have 4. So we're pretty well advanced in this area. In spring 24, online enrollment was up 37% over spring 23. 42% of our students in spring 24 were fully online, taking every single course online, and over 70% were taking at least one course in the online space. This summer, we have 25 online physics sections. This is like our cash cow, I guess, for the summer. We really invested in STEM online before others did, and we were willing to do it. Our faculty got on board, and that is why we're able to have engineering, networking, cybersecurity, and those kind of programs online when other institutions don't. Summer 24 online enrollment is up 26% over summer 2023, and 90% of the students this summer are taking their courses online. One cool thing that we're doing is working with Coursera, which is a MOOC platform, which is a massive open online course provider. on creating a wine and food pairing course with Jamie Rotter from our culinary program. And the hope is that that course will work to drive enrollment into the viticulture certificate, which will launch in spring 25 online, and also possibly into our culinary program. We're really excited about this. Sometimes these courses get thousands of enrollments. We'll see how many this one gets. We're charging a very minimum, charging $50, of which we get to keep half, but all our only cost is that initial development cost. So it should hopefully be a good and different way to kind of drive students towards FLCC. New online programs. Recently, we added American Sign Language as a fully online program, graphic design. As I mentioned, the viticulture certificate will be offered starting in spring 25. And we're discussing options with culinary faculty on possibilities for online development using augmented and virtual reality. So we purchased some Apple Vision Pros, we purchased some MetaQuests, we have HoloLens, we have a bunch of different options that we're looking at and how we might be able to integrate those and creating a culinary space. Course success by modalities is hard to read. I understand that. Hopefully you can see in your packet. The story that this just needs to tell is basically that 7 years ago, the difference between face-to-face and online course completion was about 17%. So students in a face-to-face class were 17% more likely to pass their course than a student in an online course. Now that number, spring 23, 7%, and actually for spring 24, I got the numbers after I did turn this PowerPoint, 6%. So we really closed the gap. So students who take an online course are almost just as likely to be successful as students who take a face-to-face class. The things that we're doing to try to improve our online courses include using Watermark for our student surveys of teaching, which has allowed us to increase the completion rate about 6%. The thing that we have with Watermark that we didn't have with our last platform is the ability to do some other things to for students to complete those student evaluations. And those are super important for faculty as they get feedback on their course and look to make changes, and kind of that continuous improvement process that we're looking for in the course design process. We also are looking at, and hopefully very soon we'll have a process for our older courses that have been around for a while to ensure that we're continuing to look at them and refreshing them and making sure they're up to the latest standards and following all the best practices. We're also beginning a master course model, which is for English 101, let's say. We think in the fall, we had 17 or 18 sections of that online. The idea is, some of those get added late, so an adjunct comes in, they have a course already ready for them that they can teach from, that has been vetted by the department agrees upon. When we're focusing that project currently on courses with low rates. We're currently going through the SUNY Online Plus recertification process. So we sent our initial documentation to SUNY. There's 70 standards for this across 7 categories. Using the OLC quality scorecard, this will renew our SUNY Online Plus status. What this does basically is when you go to SUNY's website and you search for a program, if it's SUNY Online Plus, it's going to show up at the top. So if you search for business administration and it's SUNY Online Plus, it's going to show up at the top of the results, which means we're more likely to get those students. There's 408 associate's level programs online at SUNY. 62 of them are SUNY Online Plus. We currently have 9 of those 62, and we're planning for 4 more as soon as this is done. I mentioned the SUNY Institutional Readiness Reviewer, and now it is Rose's turn.
I am more of a student liaison, so I deal with more student more than faculty. So I would like to address some of the common issues for our online students. So navigating Brightspace, which is our online learning platform. So with more traditional students, it's a little easier because they went through that little COVID area. They were forced to learn online. But for our non-traditional students, they didn't have to do that. Older students. So I have done like a bunch of meetings with them, just trying to make them more comfortable with the platform. I also find students need help finding information on classes and instructors. So obviously with my FLCC, you can go through the course description on this FLCC website as well. They just don't know where to find that. And obviously this FLCC directory as well is a huge help for students. Older students coming back to college just need that extra boost with technology help. I just kind of walk through with one-on-one meetings, and help them through WebEx, understanding what resources are available to them. So we have a lot of resources that students aren't aware of. Besides just me, I like to show them how to 24-hour tutoring, ASAP services, student online help desk, which helps with after hours and weekends for technology help, and then understanding time management skills. Online students don't understand a lot of the time that online courses are a huge time commitment and need a lot of extra help. So I try to walk through them with time management skills and try to help them understand that it's a huge commitment time-wise. So it helps them feel a little bit more comfortable, and I find more success with that. I am that liaison between the students and faculty, so I try to build that relationship between the students since they don't see the faculty a lot online, with asynchronous especially. So remote classes, you can see them online, but I try to build that relationship and try to show them that you can talk to your faculty. Sometimes they do get a little nervous, so I'm there to help them bridge that gap. I also help the students find the resources they need, so I kind of touched on this with 24-hour tutoring. They obviously sometimes don't know how to find that. I also host office hours and one-on-one meetings virtually and in person. I do in person a little bit of the time since I am in the office, but a lot of times one-on-one virtually. I try to, and since they are typically full-time workers, older students, I do off hours after work, which is they are very gracious for. I find a lot of success with my post traditional work hours with them. I also try to participate in Student Online, Student Success Community of Practice, which is a great community with Student Online with a bunch of SUNY schools across the states. We try to come up with best practices, common issues we see with our students, and how to find solutions for those students. It's a great community of people. We love to work together. And I also got a certificate for coaching strategies through them last fall, and it was a great professional development for me to understand online student and coaching strategies. And then I also work with faculty to help them understand where students are struggling. So I often utilize Jeff and Alexa, who we talked about earlier in the presentation. Sometimes students find little sticky situations in their courses. I just try to go in and see if I see the same thing. And then if I don't, or if I do, I contact Jeff or Alexa to walk through that with them and see if they can help, because they are more on the faculty side as I'm the student side. And then how do I build a connection with these students? I utilize Brightspace as my communication channel. So there is an all students Brightspace page and then just an online student Brightspace page. So the more all students is deadlines, withdrawals, FAFSA information, kind of just like broad sense that every student should know. And then my online student page is tips and tricks how to become a better online student, because they're just a little different sometimes. There's tips and tricks, study habits are just to kind of re-push that 24-hour tutoring, the student online help desk, and timely care is also a huge help for them. And then I manage just the online students, so I try to push those resources. We have a huge help with our tutoring services on that page, so I work collaboratively with them. I also partner with Student Life, which has been a huge help to help bridge that gap with students that may never walk on campus, and try to build that connectiveness with campus, try to build that forever relationship with them. We're trying to do online only events, trying to figure online only swag, so they can have that tangible item with them. So we're trying to work with that for online students to just feel that connectiveness, and then they can build that forever relationship with us, even though they never step foot on campus. And then I also work collaboratively with the ACTS office and the PACE team to identify those students, since they're kind of the first people that come across those students, whether it's first-year students or those returning students. We try to identify those students that are struggling the most, and they kind of just work with me to help bridge that gap. I work with them with one-on-one meetings and we try to help those students that are struggling. Usually it's just, they just need a refresher or they just need a little bit of help. So try to build the connectiveness as much as possible.
So thank you. Any questions that we can answer?
A couple of, Ryan, you mentioned that you've closed the gap on success rate, which is fantastic. Does that include folks who drop the course?
So
Is there a difference there?
So if you look at those numbers in that table that we provided, it provides from start to finish. And then there's another area that provides from the census date, which is the date when if a student hasn't participated at all in a course, we drop them. So there's kind of two different sets of numbers you can look at. I always look at census date on because the students who never logged in or never decided to show up in a classroom, to me, they were probably a lost cause to me.
Right, I was just wondering if that would be different than the in-person student.
There's slightly different measures. So we do run DFW report, which is similar but not the same as course completion. So we have a rate of students who get a D, an F, or a W in every single course. And for those W students, we also look at what kind of withdrawal it is. So for example, a student might have a medical withdrawal, which is different than a student dropping a course, 2 weeks before it's over. And so that's a more like finite way to really look at the way the success pattern is appearing. And then we look at overall completion, and completion is sort of universally defined. So it looks at the students that finish the course.
Right, but we're not seeing a big difference between.
So course success data does show differences between online and face-to-face, and actually in general, this is just like sort of back the envelope math, because there are big differences between different types of classes and things like that. High flex courses tend to actually have the highest course success rate, which is not actually too surprising because when students have the best choices to make for their own success, they're able to have success. And I'm using the term high flex broadly. It doesn't necessarily exactly high flex in some way, shape, or form. So there's not a huge difference, but there are some difference, and sometimes those differences show up a little bit more in some disciplines.
Okay, great, thanks. And Brooke, you mentioned that it's a higher time commitment for the online student that I would have imagined it differently.
So I guess you can think about it like you go to class, you're kind of just like in that class and you just do your homework after. I feel like it's more of time commitment to learn the material, reading all the material, and then doing the homework or quizzes on your own time. So it's more of a time commitment to understand the material we found. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you have the teacher speaking to you when you're either remote or in person. I find it's more of a time commitment to not only understand the material and then show you understand the material.
Yeah, there's nobody going like this.
Yeah, and you can ask questions easier in person, so you have to understand it, or you have to wait for an email or.
Great,
Office
thanks.
hours.
Thanks, that's helpful. Sorry, other questions?
I have a question. So for the online or remote classes, or any of them actually, are the professors required to have office hours where it is easy for a student to go and ask those questions or get clarity?
Many of our faculty, so if you teach online, you are required to have online office hours, so you're available to your students. We encourage our faculty to hold those hours in the evening if they can, because that is when their students are generally more available. Many of our faculty also, when they're just doing their regular office hours, will also have their WebEx room open while they're sitting in their office. So they're kind of there not only for their online students, but also for their face-to-face students. And that is pretty ubiquitous at this point, that most faculty do that.
Yeah.
But if you teach online, you are required to have online office hours so that you're available to those students for a certain amount of time.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
So,
Yeah.
yes. Not sure if this is appropriate here, but underneath the umbrella of online learning, I'm curious if, and you may have covered it, we've had an opportunity to hone in on what I consider to be the senior or retiree or aging population segment of our community. Well, one of the silver linings of COVID was the ability to visit the Louvre, to a Met Opera, bring the museum down to Florida, but you paid for those opportunities. I'm just wondering, as a result of what we've been through, and we were such an early adopter to online, if in fact those folks that want lifelong learning, that may not physically be able to audit a class, but can be reached in some way, we've been able to target them or reach out to them in capacity.
Yeah, so I think there's a few different ways that we're attacking that. I mean, you gave some great examples, and that is why we're really investigating AR and VR at a much deeper level so that we can try to have those more realistic experiences. I mentioned it with culinary. One of the holdbacks for culinary is, do we really want to send students a bunch of knives and have them not have a member in front of them showing them exactly how to use them? But could we do AR, VR meat cutting where they're wearing a mask and they're using something that's plastic and still doing it exactly as they would in a real environment? Further, we do also target some of our marketing towards adult students. Carol could probably speak better to that, but we've done that in the past. We also, like ASL is a great example of a program that would be targeted more towards adult students, because they, generally that would be more of an interest, like a lifelong learning interest kind of course. The food and wine pairing course is most certainly that. That's an attempt to try to get those students who are just kind of interested in food and wine in this area and all of that stuff. And then the viticulture certificate thing as well is very likely to draw on a significant amount of adult students because it's relatively short and it gives them a pretty good deep dive into wine, and this area is obviously known internationally for our wine, and so there are so many people that are super interested in that. And then following the food and wine pairing course, we're likely to also then do maybe a beverage course that's going to focus on different types of beer and also different types of whiskey and so forth. So with the idea that we would target those adult students.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Right, next, we have a resolution to grant professional association administrative appointment for Michael Best.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Ed, your CIO, if you forgot. I'm not the new John anymore. I'm really
That's what you
pleased.
think.
Still filling some big shoes. I'm really pleased to recommend Mike Best's reappointment. And I say reappointment because Mike got his 5-year appointment back in 2018. Shortly after that, he decided to leave us for a little while and then came back to the FLCC family, which triggered a 2-year extension. So Mike has been here for more than just the appointment time frame. But I will say that I have worked with Mike for the last 18 months or so, and he's an excellent employee. But Robin, one of the directors in his chain of command, has worked with him for many more years. So I actually asked her if she could say a few things about Mike on our behalf.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Good. Thanks, Ed. Yes, so as Ed noted, Mike Best received his 5-year administrative appointment on September 18th, or I'm sorry, in September of 2018. And after a brief stint with St. John Fisher College, he returned to FLCC almost 2 years ago. He dove right in and was able to successfully complete implementation of an Apple device management program. Some of you might recognize it as JAMF. But JAMF allows us to manage, and with Mike's work, allows us to manage college-owned Apple laptops, desktops, and iPads, which is great, whether they're on-premise or off-premise, because that has greatly enabled our ability to support the Math iPad Loaner program, where we can provide iPads to students, remote students. And also this summer, we will be supporting ArtSpace 36 with several iPad over there for workshops. So with the ability of JAMF, we can now recover misplaced lost devices. We can lock them down if need be to encourage returning them. It's really a great program, and through Mike's work, it helps us, ensure our college-owned resources. Also, upon return, Mr. Best completed the Apple lease refresh, which refreshed over 200 Apple devices for the college. Huge undertaking because he had to go round up all of those devices and send them back, and then unpack, reload, and distribute all the new devices. So big job there. We recently hired a new desktop technology specialist, and in our desire to cross-train our technology specialist, Mr. Best has been working very closely with this young man to bring him up to speed on Apple products and operation of Jamf. So his contributions to the desktop technology support team allow us to provide a more seamless support to our customers, no matter what product they're using. But on a personal note, I have known Mr. Best since 2015. I have always found him to bring an incredibly thoughtful approach to everything that he does. He researches tirelessly, and he always brings us best practices and recommends the most consistent and responsible approach for our college. So with that, Dr. Nye, members of the Board of Trustees, based on the evaluation materials and the endorsement of his supervisor, Matt Hance, and his peers, and with a great deal of personal pride, I wholeheartedly recommend the approval of Mike Best, Apple Technology Specialist, to full administrative appointment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So why?
Next, we have strategic thought presentation, an update on retention from Dr. Barlow.
Yes. That's not the first one. Yeah. Yeah, it's there. We say that the first one we found it. Weapons. Okay, hi everyone. Nice to see you all again. It's retention time again. So twice a year we come and we chat about retention, and the reason we do it twice a year from a numbers perspective is because we look at retention from a fall to fall perspective and a fall to spring perspective, and we get we create those numbers and those analyses then two times a year based on when our official enrollment is certified by SUNY. So there's often a bit of a lag between when we actually close out a semester and when we're able to say what the retention is. Because if we don't calculate it based on official files, these data are public, and then it ends up being that we have different numbers being used in different places, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little bit of a background to where we are with retention. So we're going to talk today about mostly fall to spring, because I briefed you last fall on fall to fall. I'm going to give you just a brief reminder on that so we can remember it, and then we'll go into fall to spring. So just quickly, those of you who've been playing along here for a while may remember that we have two ways to look at retention here at FLCC. And that is something that is a little bit newer insofar as a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, the only way we ever looked at retention here was under traditional. So that traditional is a cohort way of looking at it. And anytime you see our SUNY data or IPEDS data, which is national data, sometimes middle states data, depends who's publishing it, they almost always use traditional calculations. Traditional calculations only look at first-time, full-time students. how many students are we leaving out when we don't do it, right? When we only look at first-time, full-time, are we really doing our jobs? That's the question. That's a question the board asked of us and we asked of ourselves a few years ago when we were trying to get more savvy with data-driven decision making. So hence enters all student retention, which is the second way we look at retention here at FLCC. And that includes, as it sort of sounds like, all students. They are in fact really different calculations. They're even different like in the database, how we have to set them up. They're different in who's reported on to whom and when. So there are some things we have to keep in mind when we're doing those calculations. And you might ask, well, why do we even look then at that traditional way if we're leaving out so many of our students? And the answer to that is because, in fact, that's what's asked and published. So if we don't do that, one, we would be out of compliance because we have to report on those data by actual literal education law. But also, if people are going to be judging us based on those, we need to know what those numbers are. So we need to be familiar and understand them and continue to look through them, but we also need to look at all of our students. So it's a mixture. So when we look at our cohort retention for the last year, this is a reminder of our fall to fall, just so we can situate before going into fall spring. We see really quickly that we're beginning to rebound after COVID. And you may recall me standing here saying, hey, I think most of this is COVID, but I'm not really going to know until we're out of COVID. And we're beginning pretty consistently across a lot of our different data to see retention, persistence, course taking. We're all beginning to see what's really a long-term change and what's more COVID. And it's pretty obvious here just in looking at that jump up. And of course, the big thing here is we're looking at approaching pre-pandemic rates. That's exciting. That's what we want to see. And so that's a good news story. Doesn't mean we still don't have work to do, but it means we're doing what we need to do and going in the right direction. Again, a reminder from last spring, that official data I just talked about, traditional calculation, we jumped from 25 last year to 16, so we're right in the middle, which is a fairly large jump in 1 year in educational terms. And again, this is what we see if you go to SUNY. These are the numbers you see. You don't see some of the other numbers I'm going to share with you because we calculate those using that non-traditional route.
Are we confident the other community colleges are reporting in that accurate way?
We are confident that Tompkins Cortland's data is incorrect. That is well known in the SUNY community. For a number of reasons, enrollment as well. And you'll notice I removed FIT from this. If you went to SUNY's website, they put FIT. I literally refuse. It's like a hill I will die on. It's ridiculous. They are not a community college. So silliness. So their data is not comparable to ours because they actually also grant doctoral degrees, not even just bachelor's degrees. So it throws off their calculations. So those two are sort of known problems in the data set, but otherwise.
Okay, so just quick observation. I looked at that and I said, well, there's a, 5% difference and we jumped 9 places. We got another 5%. We'd be.
You're exactly right. And I think you're gonna like a couple of my later slides because of that, but that's exactly the point. It's really helpful to look at these things because sometimes these goals seem really unattainable and they're not always. And you have to sort of break them down and really look at what goes into that and how many students would that even be in X percentage, whatever we're talking about. So I do think it is helpful to be comparative, but it's not the only thing we are. We have to be comparative to ourselves too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So the top 10 from 1 year to the next year are the same, pretty much. They're just, swapping here and there. What do you think their key is to stay up there in the top 10? You can be honest.
I think part of the issue is money. I mean, you asked me to be honest, they get more money, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have higher budgets for the same amount of students. They are not all our size. right? Like, so there's not an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
So what they're able to spend per pupil, and again, you know, not to completely give away the punchline, but I will be talking in a couple of minutes about some of our retention efforts. Retention efforts cost money, right? When you're doing wraparound services for students, those things cost money. So I looked at Dr. Nye before I gave that answer. Maybe or maybe not read his face correctly.
Some of you have heard this before. I'll give you an example. You'll see Rockland up in the top. Notwithstanding their current challenges, the amount of funding they get from the counties, both their county and from sponsor county compared to what we get from our county and their sponsor county, or for their chargebacks. They get $7 million more a year that they can put into academic support for their students. They're only 500 students more than we.
Yeah, I was gonna say that almost a perfect comparison. They're really close to us in enrollment. Yeah.
So if we had $7 million more dedicated
Oh, sure.
support for students.
It's interesting, yeah, because we're all thinking alike. Because somewhere in here, my question was gonna be, if money was no object and staffing was no object, what would it take to get to 70%?
I think it would,
Yes, there's 7 million.
yeah,
When you don't have it, you have to think about things differently.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but there is good
I'm
evidence.
thinking, what, what,
Go ahead.
money and staffing objects aside,
Yeah.
what would it take just to crack the top 10?
Yeah, when those are not obstacles that I have to problem solve with, it would take more staffing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the basic answer.
Okay.
You know, I think, is it a more complex answer than
Oh,
that?
sure.
Of course it is, right? But what we see, and it's not just us, there's a lot of really good national research on this, is wraparound services work for students, and students have complex needs, both in terms of learning and the things they need in order to learn. So, you know, all of the other non-tuition dollar issues. And I see the provost over there nodding her head. Please feel free to jump in if need be, but I believe I'm representing both our perspectives there.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is still fall to fall, but gives us sort of a basis of where we are. Moving now into fall to spring retention. Is that because of the weird 4-2 format that we can't see the whole screen? Thank you. Okay, I wanted to be able to see the left-hand side. So, the punchline here is our fall to spring retention. So one semester retention, 72%. And again, we see us getting back up on the right pathway of where we want to be. Fall to spring retention fell dramatically in 1 year, not as dramatically over the course of COVID as fall to fall retention dropped. But the piece that I also find really, that I wanted to just sort of point out to you here is we've been working in APCI now for a few months on creating a data warehouse. And I will not go into the lengthy explanation of what that is or whatnot, but basically it's getting all of our data in one spot so we can manipulate it more effectively, which is not something we can currently do very well. So this year for retention, we did the part where we put the retention data in the warehouse. It's quite a lengthy process. There's a lot of coding. There's a lot that goes into that. What's great about this is this now allows us to start looking at new data stories. And this is just a snapshot of one. I was going to show you this live, but it's a little more complicated in this space to do that. So we'll save that for maybe a retreat or something. But you can click on this great little link there and it brings you to a dashboard. And you can click all of these different terms at one time or individual and look at the different retention patterns that emerge. And one of the things that we're able to very quickly identify just by being able to manipulate 10 years instead of, only what's on the page is that the retention story is more complicated than just COVID. And what we're beginning to see is, yes, COVID was a complicating factor, but the mitigating factors that we've started to put into effect, things like having wraparound services, we're beginning to see them pay off more effectively because I can locate where in time we started certain initiatives. So just the ability to analyze on this level is not something we've been able to do before. And I just wanted to sort of share that with you. There's more to go into that, and we're not going to go into it today, but that will help us and you make better decisions and steward resources better when we have more access to data stories, easy access to data stories. So, okay, moving on. 74% fall to spring, and we're just above, just a little bit higher than the 5-year average, which is great. So right track, going in the right way. So I promised that we would talk a little bit about some of those retention initiatives, and you had multiple updates, primarily from Sarah Whiffen, our AVP of Student Affairs, who leads up most of these initiatives broadly. I did want to just give you a quick reminder of what we're talking about and how they are both different and the same. There's some overlap and not some overlap. All of these in blue are broadly what we would refer to as wraparound services. They have slightly different approaches. You see there the ELP program's been around forever, literally 50 years. I'm not exaggerating on that. It's targeted students. So students who are low income and have academic preparation issues, they can get an EOP. PACE is the presidential board supported initiative that we are about a year in. We have our first initial numbers on that. That is targeted students, first year students in particular departments. So it's not every department, it's particular departments. And then the student AIMSAT program, we have student funding for that. Also targeted students. So it's low income, but you can't be an A or B, right? So it's sort of picking up the next pieces. So these are all wraparound where we're helping students, we're helping them with tutoring, we're sort of quarterbacking, calling them saying, hey, what's going on here? Can I connect you with an advisor? I see that you're struggling in this class, using some of our different tools for connecting with them, Starfish and Chatbot, which I'll talk about in a second, and all sorts of different things. I like to think about it as having a quarterback who's sitting there just sort of helping to make sure you get where you need to go. Then these two in green are retention initiatives, but they're specific tools. They're essentially technology-driven tools that can be applied for all students and particularly are used by those retention initiatives, but they are available to all students. Timely Care, I think you're all familiar with, is our virtual medical and mental health tool, and Chatbot is a retention tool where we send texts and things out. I'm oversimplifying greatly. Okay, so the big question is, if we want to move up in these rankings, if we want to see those numbers keep going up, are these efforts, and these efforts, which are not free, which cost us money and time and energy and all those things, are they effective? So the basic answer is we don't fully know yet, but I'm going to share what we do know. So the first one for EOP has been around for a really long time, right? EOP is not new. But what we do know is we retain a lot of our EOP students. So our EOP retention rate is quite high. 82%, as you know, that's higher than any of the numbers I just showed you, right? And remember also, low income, academically underprepared. These are our students who most likely are going to struggle the most. The biggest challenge we're having in an EOP, again, we're not here to solve that problem, is getting students into the program, and it has a very heavy bureaucratic lift because it's sort of state organized. But what we do know from what we can look at retention-wise is it is an effective program for those students. So, PACE. You've heard a lot about PACE. And PACE is pretty exciting. It's also a major initiative under our current strategic plan. And this is the first semester, this fall to this spring. It's the first time we've had any data available. So I will caution by saying this is early data, right? I need to look at fall to fall. I need to keep looking. This is the first semester. That number says that 10% higher retention rate of those students who are engaged with PACE versus students who are not engaged with PACE. Let me tell you, in education, seeing a number that high basically never happens. That is an extremely high number. So that means we need to keep looking and we need to be understanding really what's going on. And we also need to see if it's repeatable, right? Is it an anomaly? So it doesn't tell us everything is perfect, but it does tell us we need to keep looking and we need to keep tracking this because something seems to be effective. In this case, in case you're wondering, we looked at, because it's only available in certain departments, we did not compare it to everyone in the school. So for example, the business department is a PACE department and the math department is not. So I didn't compare all the business students to all the math students. I looked at the students in the business department who took advantage of PACE. We track every engagement that they have. Do they respond to the PACE council? Do they come to the meetings? And then the other students who could have chosen to do that but didn't engage, that's who I'm looking. And that's to make it the most apples to apples because business and math are not the same, right? So that's where that 10% comes from.
So no math at all.
Right, so the math department is not, this is a pilot. So, right, so we are only looking at the departments that currently are active in PACE.
Okay.
Yeah. The other piece here that I think is really important is initial data suggests that it's most impactful for students who are African-American / mixed race students. Again, very early. I need to see what's going to be more behind that number, but it's most likely because the students who need help are engaging. So essentially they're selecting into the program because it's available and they needed help more. So it technically is sort of like a selection piece, but it still means, okay, wait, we have what they need, they're getting what they need and they're staying in them.
But 10 more are active. How do you define active?
So active means that they're responding to the program. So there are a whole host of different things that happen in this program, but primarily it's outreach, right? It's looking at how a student is doing, it's calling them up and saying, hey, your professor in, business 130 flagged you for low participation or flagged you for low attendance. What's going on? Can I help you? Oh, you lost your transportation. Okay, let me connect you with our emergency loan people, or let me get you a gas card for this week so we can help get you back to class. It's that kind of service. And the students who respond, meaning when a call goes out, they respond to the call, they get counted as active. The call goes to everyone in the business department. So it's equal opportunity for someone who's in, any program in the business department to say, count me in, or I need help, or yes, thank you, or to show up to a meeting, because meetings are also offered, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is tracked essentially using Starfish, so we know and can run numbers on, okay, X number of students were enrolled in the business department majors, this subset of students engaged. A deeper analysis would then break up the level of engagement I have now.
Thanks.
47% of FLCC students are eligible because of what department they're in, so roughly half. 34% have were actively participating, which is not bad. It's a pretty good number, especially for the first semester of a program.
34% of the
Of the eligible students. Okay, SUNY ASAP, the short line on this is, we don't know yet, it just started. So stay tuned for the fall, but we'll be tracking it in a very similar way. So the two tools I mentioned, Timely Care and Chatbot, are they helping? Are they working? Are they useful tools? And should we continue to have them? Again, relatively young data, as we say, but Chatbot we have a little bit more data on because we did start using this at the tail end of the pandemic. And the big thing that we see here is, yes, more students are interacting. So we went from 48% last fall to in fall 23, 60% were getting a level of risk assigned, meaning they were interacting with the tool and the tool was telling us something's wrong with the student. They're telling us they need help, right? That's good. That means more students are using the tool, engaging the tool, and letting us know so we can intervene. And then there's some indication of impact. And this is a little bit of a mixed bag, so we have to keep following this. So in this case, because the chatbot allows us to look at high-risk students, I looked particularly at the students who were in the highest risk category according to the chatbot, right? So the students that need the most help. And in the first look, where I looked from fall to fall last year, I had 54% compared to 58% overall. Now you might say, well, wait a second, those aren't the same number. But remember, these are the highest risk students. These are the students we expect to drop out, and they're almost on par with this, with all of our other students. That's a positive, that's a good. But then when we reran it fall to spring this year, so again, we'll wait until the fall and we'll look fall to fall again. It was 59% to 77%. So not terrible. Again, these are the highest risk students versus our best students, but not the same, it's not the same exact story. So we have to keep looking at that and seeing. The biggest thing that the chatbot does, though, is identify high risk. So it's another way that those PACE coaches, for example, get that information. They're told, hey, business student 100, answered this way, and the chatbot is saying this student's at high risk. So it's another piece of information that means that PACE coach can go, hey, what's going on? Can I help you with this? Where I got your response to Flick, we call the chatbot Flick. And I understand you're really struggling in blah, 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 blah. Let me help you. So it's another means of getting information. So when we think about it a little bit in that way, as PACE is working, chatbot may be a very useful tool to plug into it, especially if we think about expanding PACE. But I'll reiterate it's all early days. So last one. Timely care. We've been talking about timely care for a while. This was a major move on the part of the school and of this board to authorize the expenditure during COVID for this, an important one, particularly during COVID. So what we're seeing is students who engage with timely care are 4% more likely to be retained. Not a huge number, not a 10%, a much more normal number in terms of an initiative, but still a pretty significant number. If we were to dig more into these data, which we're not going to do, one of the biggest things we find is it's about 85% of the timely care appointments and interactions are on mental health. And that lines up 100% with the enrollment data we've been talking about, with what our faculty keep telling us. So it is absolutely filling a need. It is working. Is it completely the right tool? I don't know that we know that, but we do know there's a need, and the need is being filled, and we're seeing an impact. Okay, so thank you. That is all I have for you today, but of course, I'm very happy to answer.
Okay. Any questions?
Seriously, no questions for me?
I do. So going back to the whole, if you had $1 million.
Yeah.
All right. One of the strategies that one cohort that I saw that was missing from the strategies were the students who may have dropped out during COVID. Is there any effort to contact them? Maybe their circumstances have changed since then, and calling them back and say, hey, you only have 2 more classes or whatnot. Come back, finish.
We have a couple of different initiatives. Carol can speak better to one of them than I can, the sort of the debt forgiveness one. Thank you, return. And it's like something to finish. Yeah. Where we're looking at return to finish, students have dropped out because of financial aid or other, and I think overall that has been successful. We did do some initial work specifically with COVID students, but I don't know that we have any like targeted initiative just for students who dropped out with COVID.
And the ROI might not be there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I also don't not know. Like, I think broadly there are students that aren't in these numbers because these are about the students that we did retain, where I think we don't have a strong initiative around that. It is possible that it could morph out of some of these other initiatives that we're sort of still getting our heads around, because from a wraparound services perspective, you can see that. One thing we have done, I think, better than we've been doing in the past, not exactly what you're asking, but is when a student is withdrawing from all classes, or academic standards are going to lend itself in a way where they're likely not going to continue. We have a much better connection to workforce now, our non-credit side, where students are having conversations about, hey, did you know about this? Or could you go over there? Yes? Are you agreeing with me?
No.
Thinking about something you said.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I think that's good, because sometimes the path isn't here. And we want to make sure that we connect them with whatever path is the right one, especially if it's here. Especially if it's still with FLCC, but in a different way.
Could you just at least elaborate briefly on the programs we do have?
Yes.
Because they do link.
That's what I was thinking about, yes. So Deborah mentioned Return to Finish. We have two programs, RTF and Debt Deferral Program, where on a semesterly basis, we reach out to students who attended FLCC, stopped out, and have not completed a degree program. We use that information, we run them through the National Clearinghouse to confirm they did not transfer anywhere else to complete a degree. So we know they're clean, so to speak, in terms of, we know that they have not completed the degree. We have had very good success in both of these programs. The Return to Finish program is for students who have been away from the college for 3 or more years and were in collections for that period of time, and there was no success with collections. They're invited to come back, and if they complete their degree, we forgive up to a specific amount, and I want to say $2,400, up to, based on what they owe, if they complete the degree. We have had very good success with that program. So based on that program, then I asked my team, why can't we be doing this? Why do we have to wait for 3 years? Why can't we do something now? So we then developed the debt deferral program that allows them to return, have their balance deferred. They're able to collect financial aid if eligible and complete a degree. That program is newer, and we have to look at the data associated.
Is the debt deferral still the end of the degree, or is there a grace period after
No.
the degree?
It's through the degree completion.
Okay.
And they can also, I neglected to mention that as they receive financial aid, they can also opt to pay off their balance.
Fine.
Right.
There may be something, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How's it?
In terms of metrics, the service that we use that demonstrates the number of people who come back, they measure.
No.
There's a program we've been using that we pay for, SUNY had it, and we paid for it, that tracks our students.
Oh, through Ed Financial.
Financial.
Yes, so that is a completely different program that it is not Return to Finish, but it has a similar title. Where students who did not complete a degree are invited to complete a degree. They are tracked through a firm called Ed America, formerly known as Ed Financial. We use use them for our debt prevention program. They track those students in terms of how many of our students come back. They don't necessarily come back to FLCC. They can go back to, they can enroll at any SUNY college, but they track those students, and I have those reports that I could share with the
And the
board.
data shows that we are more successful than most others.
Well, and not all SUNY colleges are participating in the program. Some opted So initially, SUNY was covering the cost of the program. And then after 3 years, the SUNY transferred the cost to each SUNY institution. We opted to participate. And quite a number of SUNY schools chose not to. So we are participating, and I can certainly, I could even invite Tom Dalton virtually to do a presentation.
That'd be good for Paul.
Okay, yeah, happy to do so.
Any other, you have
No,
questions?
I'm all set.
Sure.
I'll say, general question got answered
Okay, awesome.
twice.
Any other questions or comments for Deborah? Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Thank you, Don. A second.
Second.
Thank you. Or Don, actually, or Nita. They're on the committee. Nita, right?
Sure.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. I will pass it over to you. Finance.
Yes, today is June 5th, 2024, Finance and Facilities Committee. We'd like to call to order that committee meeting. First order of business is reviewing our minutes for May 1st. Any questions, comments, changes? May 1st. Read them all, you know them by heart. Seeing none, we'll move right up to Jason's already there in position, ready to go. Talk to us about the finance and budget update. It's all yours.
So coming up on the screen is our results as of April. As you'll see, our revenues are trending in line with where our enrollment has been up. So up 6% year over year. So you'll see our tuition's up compared to budget. Miscellaneous revenue is up as well. That is mainly driven by some interest income. Some idle cash. It's a big way to pay bills. Sponsor-specific investment did come in May, so you'll see that in the report. And then these, again, chargeback has pushed that number up. So anticipating revenue fall in around $50 million. Operating revenues. A lot of that is our state aid payment in June. And then we'll also have our sponsor-specific investment that will be recognized, as well as our chargeback for summer.
Questions on the revenue side? Expenses.
Expenses are trending in line as well with budget. Scroll down a little. See our salary benefits are in line, 63%, 66% completed for the year. So some vacancy savings and things that happen. Equipment, again, this number will pick up here in summer months. So we're getting that ready the fall semester. Supplies and expenses, that number is up higher. Again, as I've said previous months, it's the way we recognize our scholarships. So that is reflected as we produce our main results. That did get recognized last year in May. So those numbers do close a little bit closer together. And then utilities pretty much in line everywhere.
Questions on the expense side? We're about 2/3, probably exactly 2/3 of the way.
Yeah.
When will you start to project your end, realizing it's?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still comfortable that I think our expense will fall in line with what we've budgeted.
Okay.
We may have some savings that gets generated from that just because of the vacancies, savings that supplies and expenses. I expect some, maybe a little bit spent above budget as we look at, we brought in contractors to help fill some of those vacancies, so that line will be higher, but the vacancy savings will help to offset that.
Okay.
So, so I do expect us to arrive right around where we forecasted for budget. We may have a little bit more savings And if you scroll back up a little bit, check a little bit, our revenues were coming about $50 million. So I would anticipate probably break even, no use of fund balance, but, we'll play that through the rest of the year. Bad debt and loans and looking at that, or ensuring that we're set up as we go into the future. So we'll keep looking at those numbers. May I'll have a better projection. So when we come back to August, the board, even in July, as far as where we're going to kind of land at year end. So
In bed, that you include receivables that are not able to be recovered, or is that a separate? You're not that.
yeah, I have included those.
Lump it in.
Yeah, August, we'll bring a resolution to look at writing off previous bad debt. So we'll recognize that in this year's budget.
Okay. Anything else on operational budget for 24-25?
So I'd like to present our 24-25 budget. I know we've had some conversations. So kind of a general overview right now. I did salary related expenses. Looked at having a 2.5% increase in our non-salary related expenses in the current year. And then we also added 2 new positions. These 2 new positions are science, position in science, as well as an additional digital content specialist that we work through asking individuals for position needs. And then as a cabinet, we determine which needs help us strategically. Science area is in high demand, high need for faculty members. So that makes sense to be able to fund a faculty position to assist with the high demand versus the digital content specialist is looking at social media, being able to ensure that, we're communicating, we're advertising, we're marketing, FLCC, and really building a brand and helping us to ensure that the content that we're pushing out to the public is accurate. And this will be the focus of this individual. Assisting with Lenore and that she does and across student corporation.
You reference offset by grants.
Yeah, so some of the positions that have been previously in our budget have been offset by grants. So that's helped pull that down a little bit. Because you'll see that most of in all of our contractual union, we have a 2.5% COLA in next year's budget. So that's why I included the offset, because we, 2.1% increase, there was some offset to that, so.
That's coordinated some through our grant writer.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Keep going.
Benefit expenses, pretty significant increase here. 7.7% increase. This is mainly driven by our healthcare increases. Healthcare costs 14% the previous year. That was our medical insurance. Other costs, dental costs, about a 2 to 3% increase, but the health insurance is a big concern, big cost, and most people are feeling. We've tried and are working on instituting wellness committees to help educate employees and their families on healthy habits, so that we can start trying to look at preventative measures, preventative care. How do we get people to take wellness exams to be able to identify issues earlier so that it doesn't become a catastrophic claim. So really, that's how we're trying to look at it. We're a fully insured plan right now as well. So, you know, I think there's discussions, and will be discussion in the future as far as, you know, we were in a consortium previously, we pulled out of that to be fully insured. You know, is there an option to go to self-insured back to the consortium? So a lot of decisions to be made this year as we look at that. These costs will continue to increase, and we have to ensure that we're providing what's the incentive, the right measures, and hopefully taking health seriously, because that could impact, you know, how we look. The travel and supply expense increased to approximately another $876,000, 11.8%. You know, I mentioned earlier, I had provided a 2.5% increase to all departments across the board for this. But then looking at some of the initiatives we wanted to focus on as well, you know, increasing our bad debt expense. That's a big one. That's $160,000 that have been added to our bad debt expense. Again, this number is based on where we've landed in the past and our aging AR balances. So applying a methodology and identifying. We need more of a reserve in order to help offset that. So we hopefully won't have to use it. We're trying to implement new measures and line up and feedback for our students and reaching out to ensure that the bills are paid. Or that you're even doing verification for financial aid. Students would get put in this verification process and they don't hand in paperwork in order to get financial aid. So then they leave with a large outstanding debt. We've also included faculty development, ensuring that, you know, our faculty are trained in the appropriate measures to deliver quality education. So this year, we're providing $125,000 to Laura so that she can help with faculty development. This was an initiative that Rob had mentioned in a previous meeting about $250,000 over the next 2 years. So $125,000 this year coming up. And then investment in software and technology. Science, disability services, our course catalog with Watermark, scholarships in our ECS and our PTech. So continuing to increase the enrollment in those programs. We charge a third of tuition and then we scholarship 2/3 of that. So that's mainly the drive of the increase in our contractual expense.
Any questions of Jason on this portion of the executive summary he's prepared? Keep rolling.
Our revenue assumptions. So in the current year, as you can see, the top here is enrollment. In here, you can see that our actual enrollment for 22-23 was just a little south of $3,500. We had budgeted $3,500. I'm sorry, 3,500 SPDs. So 23-24 budgeted 1.6 or 2% decline. We actually, through the spring here, have revised our enrollment projections and come up closer to 3,600 FTEs. So a pretty significant swing. We were projecting a decline in enrollment, so that has bumped us chargebacks up. Budgeted assumption, I looked at a flat FTE to be conservative. And if you look over the years, which is on the 2 slides, you can see we've trended pretty close to being flat enrollments over the last couple of years. So I feel that taking that conservative approach of 0% consistent is where we need. We are going to increase tuition 1.8%, close to the 2%. I think you talked about the chargebacks and the impact that has on the chargeback rate and the levers. But really looking at 1.8%, there's a slide and later on that will show kind of where we sit. And the time will follow suit with how we increase our total rate. Additionally, so this will increase our revenue about 2.6% in addition to sponsor contribution, serving our sponsor-specific investment that is also set to increase. But then that's offset by chargeback revenue. So as we increase certain tuition, it actually has a decrease to our chargeback revenue.
So,
Got that question?
quick question. Is it a zero-sum game in terms of where we gain revenue and where we lose chargeback revenue? Or are we still gaining ground even?
You still gain ground, you gain about half of your increase. So you increase 1%, you can assume 0.5% of increase in your overall revenue.
Okay, I know we've talked ad nauseam about all these levers
Yeah.
and what they do. But in this slide, is the decrease in the chargeback revenue tied primarily or solely to the tuition rate increase?
It's not, it's also tied to, it's on the next slide, but the way that SUNY treats the sponsor specific investment has now asked us to pull those operating expenses out of our budget. So
Yeah.
that is now driving down some of that operating revenue as well.
All right, let me ask the question in reverse.
Yeah.
Is the increase in the sponsor's contribution contribute to the decrease in the chargeback revenue?
This increase in a sponsor contribution has no impact on chargeback revenue.
Okay, it's gonna be important when you present that to the board,
Okay.
that you emphasize that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm concerned that some of them will think, well, we're giving you more money, so
Yeah.
other people can give you less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that's not the case, you gotta be clear about
Excellent point.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Other questions? Keep going.
So this may help a little bit with that. So the top section will show the revenues and the way it's trended. Change from miscellaneous line, see about a 40% decrease. That was because last year we were allowed to keep that 888,000 from the county and that sponsors us an investment. So that's really drove that miscellaneous number. So it had no impact on for chargeback. So this is assuming also that, we have provided moving $724,000 of sponsor-specific investment to the sponsor contribution. We're waiting on to talk to the county about that. This will be talked about over in June with the county, and we'll discuss Ways and Means method in July. And I will come back to this board in August to finalize the resolution on both our operating expenses as well as our sponsor contribution. We need to provide that resolution to SUNY as they approve our budget. So that will finalize our budget in August this year. So,
Can that wait to the first Wednesday of August, or is there?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yep. SUNY is, last year we were submitting in the middle of August, so.
Okay.
So they did a pretty quick turnaround, but. The note here is also that if Ontario County does decide that $724,000 in their sponsor contribution is too high, that will impact our fund balance, will increase the usage of the projected fund balance. Not significantly, but it does have an impact on it. So that this slide may be updated as I come back to the board here in August. bottom slide here does show our expenses. See, contractual expenses does show a 1.5% increase on this slide. That's because I removed the $700,000 kind of in my overall narrative. So that's really what I've pulled out of there. So that's why you don't see the 11% that we showed on the previous slide.
This slide, final questions here. Keep going.
This just shows our FTE enrollment, kind of a 4-year look back, where we sit. Organized it based on our 22, 23, 2019, and 2020 to give you an idea of where we kind of sit overall decrease. So overall decrease right before COVID was about 7.1% to today. Year over year, 21, 22 to 22, 23, there's about a 2% decline. I think it does show that, you know, we've been pretty stable through the COVID timeframe. Tuition rate estimating 1.8% increase. Will be an impact of $96 per full-year tuition for students. That keeps us within the middle of the pack. Some of the ones that have reported 0 on this didn't report to SUNY if they were going to increase their tuition or not. So some of these may have actually increased tuition, but at the time of the survey, it wasn't included.
Doesn't mean it's 0.
Just doesn't mean it's 0. Some may keep at 0, but I would assume that there will be some increase into it. Rating chargeback rate. So this number, you know, you see a big jump from 22, 23 to 23, 24. This was because of our enrollment decline that we were expecting about 2%. But most schools did increase year over year. For 24, 25, I would estimate about $5,030 for a chargeback rate. This is a decline, and a lot of that's based on removing operating expenses from our budget to match the sponsor-specific investment. So doing that does have an impact on our chargeback rate, and we'll bring that down.
Is it also a possible assumption that some of the other schools beneath us, like a Monroe, Jefferson, or Suffolk, could in fact come above us into next year?
Way I understand, I was just talking to Monroe, I know their chargeback rate is going up.
Okay.
I think it does play with your, you know, CE enrollments, your operating expenses, so there, a lot of that does play with how these numbers go.
Okay. Keep going.
Sponsor contribution, you know, we know we're shown this slide in the past, so we're at 8% sponsor contribution. You know, I was doing some quick analysis as Deborah was showing her slides. Attention, I think everyone except for Hudson Valley was above us from a sponsor contribution perspective. So, and most of them were in the top 12.
Is this a slide that is shown to Ways and Means and Board of Supervisors? Once again,
But it was shown to them or something similar that was shown to them when we were arguing for that increase.
Have we looked at this compared to the retention rate?
Yep.
Because that's where I think we can show that on one slide.
Yeah, we had a specialized slide
Yeah, okay.
for that.
So we did show a similar slide last year. Yeah.
seems like it's down. Even a couple of matches, I remember it being 20, I thought it was small, a couple spots higher, but.
So
Yeah, we've been 28 and
27, 28.
Is it okay?
Yeah, 8, 9%, but our expenses are going up higher quicker than. increase from that.
Keep going.
This just shows kind of a picture of kind of how our revenue and where it comes from. Tuition fees is the largest generator revenue bucket. This slide kind of shows on the solid line, third and third, but kind of requirement for the local source, local share. Local share is your sponsor contribution charge of access in your fund balance. So I like to mainly think about it as your sponsor contribution, your charge of access, right? Using that fund balance to help get you above that minimum requirement. And local share, we don't want to be in. So 22, 23, we are right there, starting to inch above it, but continue to see the decline by the state. You know, that's an overall budget, and students are taking on more of the cost.
So what is the black line minimum local share? Is that a mandate?
It's in ed law as far as stating,
Okay,
that's the minimum.
that's the floor.
Yeah.
No, that's local share.
Right.
That's not the floor. The floor is considered with the state, the amount that they're gonna give us every year. It's either $2,997 per FTE.
Yeah.
Or the floor, whichever is greater.
Whichever is,
Greater.
um,
So right now we are,
If we were getting charged if we took the FTE rate, we'd come up short.
we're gonna go up short.
Yeah.
yes. And the way the state aid calculation looks at it, we take the 3-year average. They weight the earlier year or the latest year with more fees. It's 40, 30, I think it's 50, let's see, it's 50, 30, 20. So it gets weighted. So I have to look at that, but, so, you know, we will have, if they do remove the floor, CDs right now, you know, I think, in order for us to meet, what we're currently being, what the floor is set at right now, we have to have an FTE number of 3,700 FTEs. So, you know, we'll have a couple of years, especially when you look at 21, 22, those will start being weighted less. So we do have an impact from that. So our FTEs increase, we need to get closer to that 3,700 FTEs in order to continue the current state aid that we're receiving.
And they will look at the 23, 24 current year. They look back.
No, the state has already said that their budget will be based on the floor. So they've already said change for the upcoming year. We feel and we've discussed that it's probably another 2 years that they're gonna keep the floor. And after that, we don't know where it's going. So, but we know that there's been some sort of commitment. Right, with the floor staying in place for at least another 2 years.
And they were talking about doing a study to determine what the right formula should be.
A study.
Yeah, goodness knows who's gonna do that study, but,
I have access,
yeah,
but there is no commitment
No,
anywhere
no.
that says it will be continued, other than beyond this year.
The 2 years more
2 years is where they kind of discussed. You can make the assumption that the next 2 years the floor will be in place, but after that, we don't know where that will go.
right, wow.
Jason, part of your discussion for one of the components of the local share, last year when we were talking about redoing the sponsor contribution, was also included the capital maintenance number.
Yeah.
Is that in your calculation also for local share?
That is not in the local share.
Does the state consider that part of the local share?
No, they do not. State, the
if the
state.
county considers it part of the local
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
It doesn't really count.
Right.
It counts for the county.
Yeah.
Doesn't count for
Absolutely.
the-
Yeah. But we don't run those expenses. It's similar to the sponsor specific investment. They claim that.
That might be another thing to add to what Jeff was talking.
Yeah.
When you're not.
Strictly operating.
Yeah. This is our trend in our fund balance. So the blue line shows us the fund balance previous year, as well as kind of where I'm projecting 23, 24 to come out. In a little bit. And then, so that's the blue line. Gray line shows kind of what we're going to use for our fund balance. Projected usage of fund balance for the current year. So then the orange line shows what we could appropriate it to use for our fund. So you add the orange, the gray, we'll get the blue.
Can I just highlight one thing here, just for folks to remember, when you see what the operating fund balance went to, we had two goals using the funds, the COVID funds during COVID. First was for innovative things to help college, which we did, and the second was to build this fund to have a more healthier standpoint from where we're. Because if you remember, we were at 5.6 million going into COVID, and when the state took away 20% of our aid, it was $2.2 million. And we have to make decisions based on things like retrenchment a year out. So if it had been truly catastrophic, we had 1 year to really bounce out of it. Or if we had 2 years of a loss of that 20%, we were almost insolvent. And so part of this goal, when we were looking at this, and we said all along publicly, this is to build a cushion to provide us 4 or 5 years of funds to be able to work and do good things, and also have the flexibility for you all to provide us some funds to help with that issue we talked about funding. So the 500K, the PACE program is exactly the same as having funding from the county. It's not the same way, but it's similar to help provide an initiative to help increase student success, or to provide those funds for Laura to help develop faculty success in terms of helping her students succeed. So I just wanted to highlight that, to remember that one of those two key goals was to make sure we built a cushion so we would never be in the place we were when we hit COVID.
I was sweating that out.
And some of the board initiated funds for some of the innovations.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry, I should include it.
The 10.6 actually does not include the board initiated funds.
That's not, yeah, it's already been set aside.
Really, we could be at 13 million, showing a total fund balance. So just to highlight that, it's highlighted down here, but we do have that outside of our operating, set aside for our strategic plan grants and other initiatives.
So just to put it in perspective, and I apologize, I didn't include the board secretary grant. That's $2.4 million that we're able to afford to do things that are strategic and hopefully provide a return on investment for you all to do things. So very excited that we can do that at this point. But wouldn't have been able to if we hadn't planned to get to a point to be able to make those decisions.
And I would also add that in addition to the dollars, and as you've stated it, I think it's an investment in the culture. I mean, we've already heard and seen Dorfloff and others, the enthusiasm, but some level of excitement and engagement in terms of the number of requests that came through. Realize there's some disappointment that didn't make it final, but however, it was a large number. And that certainly has a bit of a positive ripple effect as well. And then are other community colleges doing what we're doing? I know you presented, others presented, with regard to that kind of investment, whether it be board initiated or wherever those dollars flow.
Let Deborah speak about one instance.
Yeah, well, so I was asked to speak to the senior leadership at Adirondack Community College after their board president was at NYCCT and saw the presentation from board Christy Parker, and
Right.
there's a reference to that. They are very interested in setting up a similar fund, but I'm not sure they fully pulled the trigger on it. Well, I spoke with them a few weeks ago. I have been asked sort of broadly here and there by other community colleges about how we are managing the strategic plan, because there's a little bit of, I would say, a word on the street, reputation on the street that the grants process is innovative. And I think in particular that NYCCD presentation sparked that, but so I get asked about it a lot. Adirondack is actively involved in trying to set it up.
We're doing that as a courtesy, I suspect, as opposed to monetizing a consulting arm of the college, are we not?
I mean, you're more than welcome.
Well, Jason will tell you that the entrepreneurial aspect of things doesn't help us overall when we're adding those funds. It actually takes back the chargebacks. So nicety is a good way to put it.
Just being nice neighbors, okay. Keep going.
This shows our operating expense sources. As you'll see here, personnel services, employee benefits account for about 75% of our overall operating expense budget. So, equipment and contractor expenses make up the remaining 25%. So, pretty significant, but it's in line with everyone else as far as when it comes down to school people. Here's our budget projections for the next 3 years. This budget projection assumes a 0% increase in enrollment. See, tuition increases did keep a 2% increase to tuition for the next 3 years. Our sponsor contribution increasing 3% every year. This is the I've made as far as increases that I see being beneficial to us. In that sponsor contribution, that includes the $724,000 that I hate about coming into sponsor contribution, but we'll see where that number goes fall. Chargebacks, again, gets affected, but not as much. You start seeing an increase now because now we have higher expenses, or increase in our expenses. About $1.2 million a year. Speak a lot of larger expense increase in 26, 27, as we look at healthcare and other expenses. So I did include in these projections some years of no increase when we look at our equipment and contractual related expenses. So that's my.
The final two columns, 5, 6, 6, 7. Do they relate to any of our bargaining units that are already contractually in place, or are we just making some assumptions?
Just making assumptions,
Okay.
trying to keep it what's consistent
Okay.
with where we're currently at, but that there could change
Okay.
as we go through negotiations.
Questions? Thanks for that view.
And then this, it's small, but this will show you our expenses. I did put actuals in compared to where we budgeted for the past 2 years. And you can see where the budgets go for 23, 24 to 24, 25. So totals are at the top, and then you have the details.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so blue line separates each of the different divisions. Okay.
So just a ballpark question. If I was to break that up into 3 categories, administration and the academic part of it, and then the student support services.
Yeah.
Just on a percentage basis, how does that break out?
But personnel,
Yeah, just the cost of the central administration of the college, so the president, the board of trustees, HR, finance.
Equipment, contractual, all of it.
Yeah, and then the support services for students.
Yep.
and then the cost of the actual academic function of the college.
Good.
Just both. You don't have to answer it now, but I'd be interested.
We do that, but the other one that I think would be of interest would be the different categories that we have to report to see about exactly what you said.
Yeah.
So you're gonna look at it in terms of perspective of the percentage between the different functional areas.
Yeah.
And then they have the required elements they've got to report that from the macro level that we could see as well.
I was just,
I could bring that to the August meeting. We have the-
well, I was thinking like a supervisor, you know,
Yeah.
so if
I could put that.
it costs
Yeah.
X number of millions of dollars for the college,
Yeah.
what percentage of that is just pure administration?
Yeah.
Anticipated question.
And the
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they have it in terms of like, for instance, academic, and institutional student support, like you said,
okay,
that we have to consider that year. And what else be interesting is to show it kind of in comparison, Jason, either a general, an average within SUNY or some of the schools of our size.
yeah,
Or maybe some of the ones that have bigger sponsor contributions.
yeah, yes.
There's also per pupil cost.
I can pull that. The July meeting.
I
can send it.
Yeah, I would just, again, I would just, in the back of your mind, be prepared to address that aspect of it.
It's just a mark by mark.
Yeah, that's. So you'll have your eye test.
I was gonna say,
Typical accounting trip, put all that stuff in.
Yeah, really small.
We can see.
Sounds like you've done it before, Jordan.
Make that number be whatever you want.
There's our timeline. So, um,
Almost there.
we'll probably, I put this together before we have conversations with Ways and Means, or we'll adopt the budget in actually our August meeting. So that will happen then. We'll go to the July 3rd meeting for Ways and Means. Establish a public hearing for July 11th at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And then budget, hopefully, on August 1st, Board of Supervisors.
Thank you for the timeline.
With those three remaining dates, do trustees attend those? Or not? Yeah, I'm sure has trustees attended that.
When the budget was approved, last year, yes, the trustee chair did attend. But we'd already had the small group meetings with them where I came up with the agreement, but the trustee chair, trustee guys went last year.
He went to the public hearing.
Yep.
There an advantage?
July 3rd, to have one or two people in the room.
It does show support as we're,
As opposed to the other two seem to be fait accompli. Is that true? Or is that important to have presence there too on the July 11th and August 1st?
July 3rd is Ways and Means,
July 3rd is Ways and Means.
and then the 11th is.
The 11th is a public hearing.
It's not a public hearing, then July 3rd. Yeah,
It's where it happens.
well, yeah, you'll know what the tea leaves.
Yeah.
As they say, it's all academic.
So seriously, board leadership might consider that conversation, how you direct that and or direct us. For what it's worth. Questions on the timeline? Jason, what else do you have? That's a big screen, cover it all. Final questions, Jason? Anything else to offer before we get to resolution?
I did hear from SUNY today.
We did.
$8 million, they have in the state budget. These will be restricted funds. So they won't be included in operating state aid. Right now, they have a focus on workforce development and healthcare. Base that on enrollment and those patient-facing programs. and anticipating about award, they have highlighted about 75,000 would be the minimum award, up to $350,000 is the maximum award.
75,000 minimum for community college, up to 300. So not just straight math across the.
Not straight math. The other focus that they have for the use of these funds is in mental health. They are doing this as a straight formula.
Okay.
This is $100,000 spread across the 30 years. This could be used for, they gave some examples, but more guidance will come. Hiring mental health staff, wellness initiatives, and initiatives to destigmatize seeking funds.
100,000 per community college.
100,000 per. So that's what they're looking at. They haven't been able to look at its enrollments for those patient-facing programs to kind of lay out.
Jason, the chancellor had a meeting today, I was gonna mention it in my report, we're receiving 209,000 for the $5 million portion of the fund. And it was based on the number of public-facing health student activities that were there, so it's a little confusing, but Chancellor, the way he briefed it, it's workforce development that's related to healthcare activities, and so they based the funding based on how much they have. Unfortunately, they didn't do it on non-credit students.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not our EMT, AMS, CNA, any of those types of activities were included in that. Only the credit programs.
Everyone excluded or just?
And non-credit, all non-credit healthcare programs were excluded.
So 209 plus the 100 for mental health.
Right.
So we're looking at
209 for healthcare related workforce.
workforce development.
When they call workforce development, be anything that, as long as you can show at least the way you present it. Now, we still need to get what the guidance being from SUNY, and it could be a lot different when you finally get the guidance, but, and how they wish to measure it. But they'll probably want to measure it in some shape or form.
Another administrative duty for the community colleges to help assume under no additional funding. The mental health things, so we currently have some programs that we're funding, they're pretty new. Could those be?
So it could augment our bill for Telemed very easily. It's probably one of the no-brainers.
Okay.
Exactly. Boom.
We do think there will be some measurements, as Tom said, just because of, well, hope, maybe also to show there's more investment that's needed. So it's some sort of.
That's exactly what I texted the doctor and I this morning, right?
Yeah.
He came right back and said, yes. Yeah, I think you're all right on that. It's an opportunity. It's not much, but it's, we never got it before.
Boy, for us, it was better than what we would have gotten under what the presidents were asking for. The presidents were just asking for, split it up 30 ways, even including FIT, which would have been 266,000. So we got a little bit more. I feel very badly for the smaller schools, for instance, Adirondack, where they got the minimum, which was 75,000 for things based on the number of students that they had. And it really, really hurts those smaller schools to not, to get the less ones, the larger ones made out better.
Because the denominator is bigger.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's straight math. And healthcare programs are expensive, so the smaller schools tend to have smaller infrastructures for some of those programs.
That's a primary goal for the governor. This goal is a 20% increase in healthcare employees within the next 2-3 years.
Okay.
So that's.
Anything else on this subject before Jason moves to resolutions? Jason, anything else you want to offer before you get to resolutions? Resolutions. We have a list. I also might say that trustees have had a chance to take a look at some of these resolutions. We've got in advance, we've seen now it's all the way around. So I'm trying to go through them, but feel free to take the elevator level, high
Okay.
speed.
The first resolution is just the tuition schedule. This allows us to now start initiating the bills for our fall semester. There will be no impact based on whatever comes from the county's decision on sponsor contribution. So tuition rate will be the same.
We'll take questions as they come, Bernadette.
Thank you. All right, so out-of-state tuition is, I'm rounding, $3,800.
Yep.
But not having a certificate of residence is $5,200.
Yep. So not having a certificate of residence will take the chargeback rate plus our tuition rate. That's how the not having a certificate of residence, because that chargeback amount gets
Is applied to this $5,200.
applied to the student, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm good. That did not make sense to me whatsoever.
But really, I think the hope and, there was clear guidance that was provided to all counties, January, as far as certificate of residence and how those get applied and filled out. And hopefully, this rate isn't utilized that often, because the students have an easier way to get a certificate of residence from the counties. And counties are, that charge comes off their bill, and the county is now charged that. So as we go through kind of the month-to-month operating results, right, we see the change from non-residents to other, that number come down, because as we move through the billing cycle, we start getting a certificate of residence, so that way it then flips up to the other county. So.
Thank you.
As Jason and then Ed are presenting these, if there's questions, just jump right in. Right ahead, keep going.
The student services fees, I'll just highlight real quick, kind of the rates that have changed or any new fees. Live music was $422 last year, it's up to $490 this year. This is just based on our adjunct contract or grade contract and rate that gets charged there. So this is for their music lessons. The culinary arts, the uniform fee and night kit. This is allowing putting this fee on their bill. Will provide those students with a jacket, pants, as well as the night set at the onset of class. They will no longer be responsible in trying to procure those items. So this will allow them to be able to do that. High school concurrent enrollment, this is our Gemini fee. This went from $5 to $7. Some nursing fees also increased, the nursing assessment, testing, and remediation, $365 to $390, and nursing ATI exam license fees, $37 to $40. This is just based on what we're being charged to pass that to the student. SUNY distance learning course and the technology fee increased 50 cents and $1. That's to help with our infrastructure costs. So please, keep going. The next resolution was our single audit approval. This was to formally approve what we had done previous in May. So this is our single audit. The next one is to accept the request for naming Rochester Regional Health as our sports medicine service contract. This was based on the grading criteria that was in the proposal. H was awarded the contract based on that grading. Next one is to establish a lease with our Mueller field station. This is a 20-year lease, so that every 5 years we don't have to come back and do this. But it's really as part of the Mueller expansion. This was SUNY was requesting that we sign a longer-term lease to show our commitment to that. Helps tax council get satisfied with all the tax implications of that. So that's really why we also look at a 20-year lease here. So
Thank you.
the next one is Seeker related to our master plan, something that the county was the lead agent in. This is just asking the Board of Trustees to also formalize, name them as a seeker. We had no finance related to the master plan. So this will be included in the master plan when it gets published, hopefully next week.
Right.
The next resolution is to reject our bid for distance learning and telemedicine system for FLCC. This was bid out, did get 2 proposals back, however, we identified we didn't include a clause that was in the grant. I mean, the training requirement is only supposed to be 10% of the total budget. So we asked to reject those bids. We'll push that back out after this rebid and rebid it. Continue with the agriculture grant, so.
Okay. That's it for you? For a moment, we'll give you a step aside and give you a breath, give Ed an opportunity to share
I just didn't want him to take the whole evening. I have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first one was a core. They manage all of our servers for Colleague. I can go into as much techie detail as you want or none. I will tell you they do monitor 24/7 because I'm the first one on the list they call. I have got a couple calls at night, very late, so.
Is the amount an increase over what they have been charging?
They did, like we talked about earlier with all the different contracts, it's a few $1,000s more than last year, this current year, so. The second item on the list is Aleutian, and that's to keep them on for the next 14 months to help us with continued cleaning up of our systems. A lot of work around FAFSA. Believe it or not, there's been such a huge change in the FAFSA that they're helping us to implement that, to adjust all of our custom programming and New York State program that require reporting. That'll then, when that's done, and students can use it effectively, we can report on it, then we have to change all the CCAS reporting that we sent to SUNY, because there's a huge ripple effect with all of that, as well as the state of New York financial aid reporting. So there's a huge work around that. Pell eligibility changes that are impacted. They're also helping. I have a brand new programmer who's coming up with speech. She's doing very well. So they're helping do some training and handholding with her. And my goal is to continue with moving customizations so that we can get to a better place and do some other major system upgrades. And the last one is probably the simplest. It's 15,000 with Curly. It's literally a 24/7 emergency. I need help right this second. Can you grab a programmer and get them in to help us out with something? We've had, from what I can tell, that's been an ongoing bucket of programming for long before I got here, and it does come in handy when we have complaints.
Questions for Ed? Thank you, Ed. John.
We seem to, every year have this discussion about Pirelli.
Yes.
And will we continue to see these 3, the support for Lucian, and the other, Pirelli contracts, in addition to this bucket, which is, the emergency, which we understand? Are those going to be continuous expenses on our end, or is that leading us to something else?
So the Pirelli core services is them running our servers, databases, and actually assisting the college with all the software patches for Colleague, which is HR, finance, payroll, and student records. That's not gonna go away.
Okay, that's.
And there are some future plans. I'd love to, maybe one of the retreats, talk to you about some future directions with our enterprise systems.
Okay.
That some things are already baked in with that.
Okay.
The bucket of hours, theoretically that might go away, but it's kind of like we use it. If we don't need it, we don't. The Aleutian consultants, I do expect to go away in time. But there's some additional enhancements that I'd like to work with, and I've talked to the cabinet about it. We have some, our database is probably older than me. So it's really old. It's like, you know, Deborah can tell some stories. And what I want to get to with Lucian is get us cleaned up enough to then have them come in and help us do an upgrade of our database so that it brings us into the 21st century, which will really help ABCI and all sorts of other activities around the college.
Thank you.
Good question. Other questions about it? Thank you, Ed.
All right.
Okay, so we have just a few informational items.
The first one, number was to continue our janitorial services at the Geneva campus and viticulture center. This was just to extend previous contract through the summer. We had a part-time employee working there. For discussion as far as what we want to do for those services.
So it sounds important that we should do that.
Yes. The next one is just the maintenance repair of the boiler system, so those go down, we don't know what happens. Budget transfers, again, some of these are just moving lines within departments.
Okay.
So,
Final questions of Jason before he leaves the podium. This is your chance. Anybody? Seeing none. Jason, thank you. Nice job. Please, the motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you. That was very quick, George. A second. Thank you, Rick. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Chair, back to you, 6:42.
Trustee Martin? I'm gonna open our.
George was first, Rich was second on the motion. I apologize.
Okay, gonna open our Board of Trustees annual meeting for June 5th, 2024. Sir, I need a motion to approve the annual meeting minutes of June 7th, 2024. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
You? Now, these other resolutions, we're gonna have to go one by one. So we have a motion, I need a motion to approve the 2024-25 Board of Trustees meeting calendar. Second. All in favor?
Cameron, second.
And Rich.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. To move a resolution to appoint the 2024-25 FLCC Board of Trustee officers.
Motion?
Second, Santo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. A resolution to appoint the 2024-25 Assistant Secretary to the FLCC Board of Trustees.
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
A resolution that designates the 2024-25 FLCC official newspapers. Have a motion?
I'll move.
Second?
Santo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution to designate the 2024-25 FLCC official depositories. Have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain, I'll abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution to approve disbursement or reimbursement of 2024-25 necessary expenses incurred by members of the FLCC Board of Trustees. I have a motion. Move. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Everybody moves. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next meeting's June 2025.
2025, yeah. Now, this, I don't know what we want to do. Break time. We want to break or we want to go, keep going?
I think we should roll. But I defer.
Everybody okay with keep
Going.
keep going?
Okay. All right, I'll call our regular Board of Trustees meeting to order. Ask if there anybody that wants to speak. No, nobody, okay. Move along. Now I want to talk. Santa, I'll meet you partway. How's that? I'll meet you. Oh, I'm messing over.
Yeah, but you have food on.
Take a deep breath.
Oh, I know.
You know,
I'm good.
whereas Santa Abraham has served Finger Lakes Community College as a Board of Trustees member since 2018. And whereas Santa Abraham continued her role as a productive board member, actively engaging in college activities and demonstrating the college's values of vitality, inquiry, perseverance, and interconnectedness, a genuine support for the Finger Lakes Community College. And whereas Santa Abraham has contributed dedicated leadership to the Finger Lakes Community College as chair of the Education and Planning Committee since 2003, and co-chair of the Board Development Committee 2021 to 2023, as well as being actively engaged with these and various other committees throughout her tenure. And whereas Santa Abraham has been instrumental in providing vision, especially related to information technology issues and specific Board of Trustee policies based on her experience and knowledge. Whereas Santa Abraham has created the Geneva City School District Alumni Scholarship at Finger Lakes Community College to help encourage and strengthen our community partnerships with the City of Geneva and the K-12 pipeline. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Finger Lakes Community College Board of Trustees and the college community expresses their sincere appreciation to Santa Abraham for your dedicated service to Finger Lakes Community College.
Don't get the vote. 1, 2, 3. This picture. Thank you everyone so much. I really appreciate this. It's been a great 6 years. We made it through COVID. Who knew that we were going to go through that and we would all experience that together? We've done a lot. We've accomplished a lot. We've built a lot of relationships, and I know you will continue building those strong relationships with the community, with the county, with the students, and everyone that you come across every day. So I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
And we need approval of the FLCC Board of Trustees Emeritus Policy. Donna?
Does anyone have any questions about the emeritus policy?
I'll move to approve it if you want.
We have a second.
I'll second, Sasha.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda minutes and resolutions on the consent agenda. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any old business, new business? Joan's not here to give you the chair report. Dr. Knapp.
In light of two very important events tonight, three really, I'm gonna let my report stand as is and what's in the report, because I think it's more important to recognize folks like Santa and Nita and our new board of trustee member shortly. So I'll let my report stand as is.
Okay, committee and liaison reports. Student trustee.
Graduation was great.
That's all. Yeah.
Got anything on audit and ER? No. Okay. Board development, Donna?
I don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay, the association, I missed the last meeting and I've been, being reappointed again for 2 more years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how many that makes. It's gotta be a lot.
We not in a row?
It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Yes.
And thank you.
My pleasure. Donna, NYCCT.
I just wanted to add that NYCCT had It's meeting with the chancellor this morning, probably after the president's meeting.
No,
And-
before.
Oh, really? This was a step forward, I think, that we were even included in an explanation of how the money was being allocated. We were, of course, glad to hear that all 8 million was going to come to community colleges in the first place, which was not always a given. And NYCCT made it very clear that they would like to continue to be involved and be helpful in future planning for monies and for strategies. And there was some discussion about including, let's find my notes here. Including the trustees' voice as well as the president's in the additional other opportunities that they've mentioned, which is the governor's on-ramp funding and for SUNY transformation funds, which is focusing on semiconductor, green industries, high demand occupations. And in a slightly different twist, usually in the past, I've tried to have conversations with the provost's office about metrics for community colleges being different, and that was not met well. And there seems to be at least an acknowledgement these days that metrics for community colleges are different. And that in addition to involving the presidents in helping to set those metrics, which one, I think is also a step forward, but to include the voice of the trustees in setting that as well. So we did ask again about the funding floor model. And the chancellor has said opening up the funding floor model risks losing the floor, so we would be worse off without it. He did indicate that this was not set in stone going forward, that this was just, again, in the budget for this year, getting the 100% floor funding. But I do think there was a sense, even though it wasn't stated, that if we got, I believe this is how the chancellor phrased it, if we were to get our enrollment numbers up and we're able to present granular results, which nobody really had the opportunity to do, and the president have talked about this for a long time, and certainly in advocacy at NYCCT we have, that the stories that we tell and how many specific people we've put into the workforce, the more granular we can get on those stories, the better likelihood there would be down the road to look at the funding model, is what we were told today. I just thought I would let you know they told us approximately the same thing. Please don't make me laugh.
Thank you, Donna. And Trustee Cushman.
I was not available for the final student court meeting, so I have no report.
Okay. I'm going to need a motion to go to executive session to discuss matters regarding the employment history of a particular person or matters leading to the employment of a particular person pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7, 05, F.
Need a vote.
Second.
I'll second George.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're now in executive session.